except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing. I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn, because one street over there's a life I could have known that would have kept me from the one I had today. Except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing. I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn, because one street over there's a life I could have known that would have kept me from the one I had today. Everywhere I could have ended up just like that broken road, with a dead end in my path. Thank the Lord that I've got more than that. In this life there's nothing certain, except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing.
Good morning. This is 1100 WSGI. I'm U-Turn LaVern, and this is One Street Over. What's going on one street over from where you live in? We are so blessed because we get to live and work in Robertson County, and I'm working a little bit less because I'm a teacher and I'm off all summer, but our admin, they don't get to take this summer off like the rest of us do. Dr. Danny Weeks is in the house. I had school board meeting last night, and I thought, well, there's a chance you might be traveling, but I figure you probably made your summer plans around school board meetings and things like that. Would I be right?
Those are important dates to keep on my calendar. And so, it's a little less formal, and I say formal. Sure. I mean, we don't have to wear ties every day. And, there are a lot of days that we're out in schools, and you say, what will we be doing in schools in the summer? But, we're checking buildings, making sure that they're getting cleaned properly, making sure that maintenance is taking care of, things that you can't do when teachers and students are in classrooms. And we're taking care of floors and all of that. So, I appreciate you at least acknowledging that administration is working during the summer, because, I get the same thing, that I guess you're off for the summer. I guess you don't have to do anything. Not the case. We get vacation days at central office, and there are a few days that, I'll be out of the office during the summer. But, that's one of the things that I want our folks to know, is that our office is there to help. Sometimes we think school's completely gone and nobody's around, but, I know one of the things that a lot of students forget to do is they have to have a paper for their driver's license showing that they're in regular attendance. And so, those aren't available at school. So a lot of folks come by our office and expect to pick up those papers. So we're glad to print those out for folks. A lot of people move to the area and want to talk about how they can get registered, find out what school they're going to. So we can go ahead and take care of that in the summer for them, so they don't have to wait until school starts, until somebody's back in school. But, helping talk about zoning and things that folks need to know over the summer that we can take care of for them.
Well, Jesse Castillo was in last Wednesday. And because we normally talk to principals on the very first Wednesday, and of course we don't do that during the summer. But I had Jesse come in because they released at the end of school the little the book bus session that they did with some of my kiddos, and I wanted to talk about that and just talk about some of the technology and things like that. And so, and I said to him, I said, are you going to take any time off this summer? And he's like, not really. I'm going to, that he was talking about, because they don't realize, people do not realize that the teachers are off, but the admin, just when Mark was working at the bus shop and was safety coordinator, he worked all summer.
Right.
And everybody thinks if you're affiliated in any way with the schools that you get the summers off. That is not true. Maintenance, all those folks are just working their tails off. And so that's why, I am older, and that's why we chose teaching, is because it works very well, because we love to take a mission trip in the summer, things like that. So it allows us to do that. Plus, I will have 7 grandkids by December, so I have a lot of grandkids to chase. So,
but really well. Even in saying that, there are teachers that are working this summer. We are having summer school, and so when you see the buses out this morning, coming to the station this morning, I saw 3 buses, and one of them had the stop sign out, and I'm sure some people think, I wonder what's going on, wonder why they're picking up, but I guess post-COVID, there was a push to help catch up on some learning that was missed. And there's some state laws that require certain students, if they don't score well on their TCAP test, that they have to come to summer school. And then there's some folks that just need to come to summer school and catch up on some things, catch up on some learning. And some people even come to accelerate, to get ahead a little bit. But summer school basically runs through the month of June. We take Fridays as makeup days and holiday or days off during the summer. But Monday through Thursday, you're going to see most of our schools, at least schools in a cluster, are going to be operating.
Yeah, and that's the thing over in Greenbrier. I think it's our middle school where they're doing the summer school program. And I've got some friends that are, some of my colleagues that are working through the summer. And there's, just because it's summer, and it was so funny. Dr. Causey said this to me my first year as we were approaching the summer break. I'm like, I've got summer off. And he goes, it'll be like a long weekend. Right. and he's right, because as we've been scheduling things this summer, I'm like, okay, we're 2 weeks in. We've got this still left to do. And all these things that my husband and I were trying to get done while we're off for summer, and it's going so quickly, because when I have United Way in here with Brian Pooley, the talk is already stuff the bus and all those things that are coming up. It will be over so quickly.
And teachers are so involved in their communities. Yeah. You mentioned going on mission trips, and I know I've seen a lot of signs throughout the community about Bible school, and the sheriff's department has hosted a camp, and so our people are the ones that are often working in those positions and taking care of those and doing those things. And I know our office has been filled with teachers coming in for in-service or professional development.
We're doing that this morning.
So you're doing that today. So that's another day that, somebody that really doesn't understand thinks school is out on May 22nd and we don't darken the doors again until August 2nd or 3rd. I forget what the day is. But, it's not, 12 weeks of vacation like some people would think it is. Well,
and it's one thing, too, you work on your curriculum.
Yes.
Because for my study, it's constantly changing with audio and video. Mark is going to be teaching a couple of classes he hasn't yet taught.
Yes.
So he's working already on, his curriculum for those classes that he has not taught yet.
And that's, the last year I was in a classroom, they'd asked me to teach a class that I'd not taught before.
Right.
And I spent all summer long, working on that and, getting my lesson plans ready and where do I need to be at certain points of time. And, that I did. I spent most of the summer between in-service that. A lot of our teachers are in school. And so working on advanced degrees. And then even we have a lot of teachers that are on non-traditional licenses. You've been through that process. So they may have a teaching permit or a teaching waiver, which allows them to be in classrooms while they're working on the requirements of getting a regular teacher's license. And so oftentimes that involves taking some seminars or working in the summer with a college or university and taking some of those classes, taking some tests that they have to do. So, it's a busy time. It's a relaxed time.
Yeah.
But again, for people that just say,
oh, you're a teacher.
I remember I used to have, when I first became a teacher, there was a little sign on my desk that said the 3 best things of teaching are May, June, and July.
Yeah.
And of course, that's not the case anymore. It's not for anybody. That was a long time ago, by the way. But we are teachers are, and again, the importance of being busy in the community. Our coaches, I talked to a coach the other day, ran into them. They'd been to basketball camp, and just
Coaches
people
so
doing camps and doing things, hosting tryouts, and just the things. Exactly.
Oh my goodness, they're so busy in the summer. And FFA, and all the
So yes, we're out, and yes, some of those folks get compensated for those, but it's a year-round position. So.
Well, you were saying that my husband and I both were on the permit, and we had to go through the training. His was through, I think his is from UT Martin, where he got his, and I did mine through a program out in the Murfreesboro area. But it's to teach you to teach if you're a career teacher.
Yes.
And so we just successfully renewed our licenses last week, and we were like, yay! Great. So we're off permit, and we're fully licensed and all that stuff.
Licensed teacher, great.
So that was exciting for us. We were like, okay, because we had to wait. That's the process. If you're new to this and you want somebody to kind of help, call me, because we've been through it. But we had to. We were as we knew our licenses were coming up, that they were going to need to be renewed by August. He and I both over the last couple of months are going, okay, and we'd get on there and we couldn't figure it out. But all the stuff from our observations and all of those things had to be inputted before we could do the process of renewing. Yes. And so the minute that we got an email from you, and we're like, okay. And so we got on and we were like, yeah, we got it done. So we were quite excited, because that's something we've been anticipating from the very moment we first started teaching, is getting to that place where we did it. We're licensed. We're fully licensed. So and it's a fun process, but it's a lot.
I'm sure for you that saves a lot of headaches too at the end of the year, because probably teachers who are on permits, we can't just automatically rehire those back the next year. So you get the frustration of getting a letter from our office that says your contract's non-renewed until you take care of certain things, and doing that and going through that process. So now doing a good job, you won't get those letters.
And that is so, and it's that people just don't understand all that goes into it. It really is a lot. But I do encourage you to look into it if it's something you think you might want to do, because it's so incredibly rewarding.
It is.
It really is. It really is. These kiddos, oh my goodness. I had a kid that, a young man that graduated a couple of years ago that reached out to me, through social media, and just was kind of filling me in on his life. And it was such a blessing just to remember those moments of watching those kids develop. We had the class that graduated this year are the ones that were freshmen when I started. Oh. And that was so neat to see those kids that I had their freshman year, and to watch them. And it's just been such a blessing. So it's so much fun. So thank you for letting me do this. And it's just such a pleasure. But we are enjoying the summer. We enjoying the summer. We got a lot to do. But with that said, and I have one question from Bill Jones. Yesterday, who was it that asked him? Somebody had asked him, is there a list of kids that have graduated from Robertson County that went on to like the Ivy League, the prestigious universities, or to military academies, things like that? Howard Bradley, I think, is the one who was wanting it. And I said, I don't know. But I said, I'll ask Dr. Weeks if there's a way to get something like that.
We're required by the state in some of our programs to ask some of those questions and to try to track kids 1 year out of school. But
we do that through CTE.
The difficult piece of that is, oftentimes they use our email address as a student, so they have a student email, and they're not good about keeping a parent's address in there. And sometimes, once your student's graduated, if we send you an email, you think, got that by mistake, and delete that. And so it's hard to follow up on those things like that. And, it's difficult. I know the names of a few folks that have done those things, but I don't know that there's a formal list beyond, someone's knowledge and different things like that. And, particularly for college, I don't know that, again, we try to track that as best we can. And that's one of the last questions, what are your future plans? And, sometimes it's just hard to keep that and to know those things.
Well, and the reason it came up yesterday, we have Bill comes in on the second Monday, and we do a history thing. And he was talking about just some of the interesting people who had resided in Springfield or in this area, and it was really quite fascinating. There was one gentleman from Greenbrier that he gave me information on that had been the driver for General Patton.
How about that?
And he's from Greenbrier. And I said, well, my students are going to be looking this up, and we're going to do some kind of a little feature on this, because I had no idea. And so he had quite a bit of information on this gentleman.
Right.
And I said, that's really cool. But nonetheless, then he asked the question. I said, well, Dr. Weeks will be in here tomorrow, so we'll ask and see. But, Mark had even said they had a student that graduated from Springfield last year that went on to Harvard. Yeah, the valedictorian, Weeks. What's her first name? It's Miss Weeks' daughter. And I can't remember. He told me, but nonetheless, I know that was his understanding, is that she was going to Harvard, and he gave me her name, but hang on just a second. And
while you're looking for that,
Wallace Self is her
okay.
name. Yeah,
there you
Wallace
go.
Self,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, while you're thinking about that, you mentioned the military academy.
Yeah.
And it's coincidence I have my White House Heritage shirt on this morning.
Yes.
I know they've had 3 probably in the last 10 years, and
I knew they had several.
A couple of brothers, back to back,
Right.
And of course, Dr. Carneal being appointed to West Point, being the principal there, and so that connection, and they actually had a retired officer come to graduation and present his commissioning. So it was very nice to be there and to see that. And
that's just, those are the kinds of things that people just like to share. And my husband just put up in comments that it was Wallace Self. But anyway, but nonetheless, there are those stories out there. And if you know any of those, let me know, because the question had been asked, and I just didn't really, know for sure. Right. But like you said, it's good if we can keep up with it. And I know whenever we're doing the career and technical education classes, a part of what we call our SSQI folder, where we report to the state what we're doing in our program, is what are your kids doing beyond graduation? Right. And so in that first year, we do, have to turn that in. So we do know for a minute what they're doing, but beyond that, it's if they stay in touch. So anyway, so with that said, what did we do at the meeting last night? Was it very busy?
There are a lot of things on there. Thankfully, a lot of those things are taken care of under the consent agenda. And the consent agenda is just those things that are customary, that are easy, that don't really require discussion, or, any board member has an opportunity, if there's something on the consent agenda, that if they'd like to pull it off and discuss it, if it deserves more discussion. But a lot of those are contracts of different things that are renewed over and over and over from year to year.
Right.
For instance, one of the items on the consent agenda last night is to approve our milk purchases. We're going to purchase milk every year. That's something we do in school cafeterias and things like that. But a lot of those just formalities, I hate to call them formalities because they do require thought, they do require preparation, but we know, we're going to buy milk, we're going to buy commodities and receive commodities for our school nutrition program. So those are the type things that you'll see on the consent agenda. And so a lot of the things, it was pretty heavy last night. It had about 15 to 16 items on the consent agenda. But in terms of that, we've been talking staffing. So 2 of the big pieces last night, we recognized some of our Grow Your Own students. And again, as we think about those Grow Your Owns, those are people who either came straight out of high school knowing there's no doubt I want to be a teacher, I'm excited about teaching, and they have the opportunity to start working in our school system as teacher assistants while they're going to school at the same time, earning an associate's degree here in town through Vol State, and then through our partner at Austin Peay. And so we have a large group of of Grow Your Own candidates that have gone through and done their associate's degree. They've completed that. So we recognized them at the board meeting last night. We're going to have 19 Grow Your Owns. So these are Robertson Countyans that have worked for us for the last 3 or 4 years while they're earning their associate's degree and their bachelor's degree. And again, it's such a neat mix of individuals because some of those are people who may have tried college for a little while, life happened, and they had to step away for a few years. And so they're able to come in, some of us had to work in college anyway.
Right.
And so rather than working fast food or working landscaping or something like that, they're actually able to work in our schools, get the practice that they need, and to see what it's like to be in a school while you're taking your classes. And so, again, to have 19 of those folks are going to graduate in August and are going to be in our classrooms this fall, that's exciting. So we had the opportunity to recognize a lot of those guys last night.
That's really cool. I love that program. And I've seen some kids come up and go through that, and some that are going into the classroom already that just graduated my first year.
Exactly.
It's incredible. And to get that to get that boost is just such a blessing. So it's a great program, and it's teachers we need.
Exactly.
So, very much.
So we tie that with, jump around a little bit, our personnel report. And of course, the personnel report is another one of those that's on the agenda every week. But we do have several folks that had retired. And, over at the end of the school year, most people announce their retirement before school is out, but had a few catch up there. So there's some retirements on there, some resignations, and it also shows the work that the HR department is doing to recruit new teachers, to renew permits for people that need those taken care of, and then for some folks that have decided to move in a different direction. So personnel report's pretty lengthy. May and June, and so last night we discussed that. We take a look at that to make sure they know what a great job our HR department is doing in filling those positions. Principals are busy interviewing, and so they see the evidence of that. So a lot of activities surrounding our personnel last evening.
Would you say that now would be a really good time for people to get online and look at the availability of positions?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have everything you need to complete your application, get your name on there, get a little bit about your education, get some stuff, don't wait until you have an entire packet to try to sit down and load it in, because if I'm a principal and I know that I need a 7th grade science teacher, I'm looking at applications and, I may not have my transcript because that's one of those things, seems to be hard to get. Yeah. But, if I know you have a bachelor's degree, obviously we know you have a high school transcript from somewhere. And if you have a master's degree, we know you have a bachelor's degree. So, sometimes people would sit down and wait, but I'd say there's jobs posted. Principals are wanting to fill those positions because we talked about earlier that, principals want to take a little break too. But if their jobs aren't filled, they're busy thinking about that the whole time of who can I find to go in these positions. So personnel is a big activity in the summer, and they probably work harder in the summer in May, June, and July than any other time during the year, I would say. So good report from that group. We also take a look at attendance, and so attendance rates last night. We took a look at the April and May attendance rates for our county, and in April we ended up at 95% attendance for the district as a whole, and so very pleased with that number.
Definitely, yeah.
And the same thing, May was just a little bit lower than that. I guess not as many days, and a few people, especially some of those that are exempt, may not be required to attend some days and things like that. So attendance was down. White House Heritage had our overall highest attendance in middle and high schools. And Greenbrier Elementary, and I think it was Greenbrier Elementary and Cheatham Park Elementary had the highest April and May scores, or not scores, but attendance rates. And so congratulations to those students and those families that are doing that. We also take a look at students that have known as chronic absentees. These are students that have missed more than 20 days of school. And last night, I think the report showed that there were 750 students that missed more than 20 days of school. Oh. And so that's it was about 8% of our students missed a month of school. And so, some of those are, may have a chronic illness, and some of those may have extenuating circumstances, but, to not be in school for an entire month, and obviously their grades are suffering in many cases, and, some of them may not have been promoted to the next grade they were anticipated to. So we say that to say, work with your school, If you schedule appointments, summer's a great time to do appointments. And I know you can't always get an appointment in the summer, but taking care of some of those things, scheduling appointments early in the day, late at night, so that you can get back to school if you've been out and have to be out for a portion of the day. So those are some reports that we look at every month to make sure that we know where we are. The rest of our time was spent around our finances. So we had a budget amendment or two to clean up things that need to be cleaned up for audit. So, we have the ability, if we schedule and budget some money in one line item and we actually need it somewhere else in the budget, we have the ability to move those things within that category. So if we say we're going to spend, so much money on textbooks, and we may not need it on textbooks, we may need it on software, for instance. So we can move that from one line to another item. Get those things ready for our auditors who come in at the end of the year and spend time looking at our books. So we had about, I think it was $17,000 that we kind of needed to adjust a little bit last night. And so that'll go to the County Commission's Budget Committee this afternoon, and then on to the full County Commission next Monday. And then finally, the board adopted a budget for the upcoming school year. And, we remind everybody that's one of the three main functions of the board, is to approve a budget on an annual basis. And so last night's budget, $150.7 million.
Wow.
So $150 million budget. And again, that includes our federal dollars that come to us, our state dollars that come to us, and local dollars that flow through and take care of everything from salaries to textbooks to buildings to paving parking lots to painting, maintenance. Everything that's taken care of there is contained within that budget. And so we will be carrying our budget this evening to the County Commission's Budget Committee for their review. And so I guess some of the things that have impacted our budget most is during Governor Lee's administration, he has placed some large commitments of money into career and technical education. Mm-hmm. And so that's been over a 3 or 4 year period, and those dollars we've received all that we're going to receive. So last year's budget, compared to this year's budget, I think we're probably going to lose about $6 or $7 million, that we've been receiving from state government because of that. And again, it's been money to build programs and to start some new programs and even get some of those programs down in the middle school level. Right. But, those are things now that are, we're going to have to recover some of those and decide if we can keep some programs that we received. But again, that's one of the biggest drops in revenues for our program. Sales taxes and property taxes are where the school system receives the largest amount of local dollars. Those numbers are both coming in strong, and we've been pretty good about budgeting. I think we were off about 0.5% in budgeting, and I think that's a good reflection of our department heads for watching their budgets and planning their budgets. And again, a budget's a plan, but we do place a lot of emphasis on let's be good stewards and let's plan well and let's know what we're planning for. So I was very proud of our department heads that did that. We did talk about the gas prices now and diesel fuel prices, because, who would have known last March, as we were planning our budget for this year, what diesel prices have done.
Yeah, fuel prices.
And so to be able to manage that, we're okay right now. But we only have reports that have been turned in through the month of April right now. So we're pulling all the May numbers together, getting those finalized as they run through. And of course, that's when diesel hit its highest, and summer school diesel, that we're still running buses for the summer school. And I think somebody asked me a few weeks ago, how many miles to a gallon does a school bus get? And on a good day, 7 to 8 miles an hour, miles per gallon.
It's not much.
Right.
It's not much.
And so when you're thinking, just a couple of signs I saw coming through today, $5.50 a gallon, so you think about just, and some of our routes are here in town and they don't run many miles. And that's one thing. Some of our country routes will run 40 or 50 miles, in a day.
That's just it. And it's a lot.
So it's a lot. So that's one of the tough things about budgeting. The other pieces, the board has put in a $750 increase on top of step raises, and so you know how step raises work, but a step raise is a schedule of what a person could expect to earn over their career. So when you came in, we have a grid, so up in that top corner, you had 0 experience and a bachelor's degree, so that number is up there in the corner. And so for the next 30 years of a career, it would show what those breaks are throughout that period of time. And so a person would know, if I'm here 5 years, I get a pretty good bump at 5 years. I get a pretty good bump at 10 years and 15. So, they'll see those natural breaks. So you get and it's mainly a cost of living thing from year to year. So that's in there. But our board put in our budget $750 additional dollars to go to every staff member for the upcoming year. So we're excited to put that in the budget. And just the rest of it are mainly contracts that we have with people that just go up normally. The pest control. We have pest control. We have janitorial services. Budgeted prices. People that come in and take care of different services for us. And so most of those contracts have a normal just increase in those each day or each year.
Well, they're having to deal with fuel prices as well.
Sure they are.
I mean,
Sure
everything that you work with, everything's being affected by the fuel cost, and so it drives it up.
Yeah. So again, last year, we'd ended up with a budget, and through all of our amendments and everything through the year, we'd estimated we'd spend about $174 million. And so this year, because of the grants and some of the federal programming is not in there, we're looking at a $150 million budget. So
wow.
that was approved last night, and we'll be going to the county commission tonight to present that to them.
Okay. Well, let's pause. We're talking with Dr. Danny Weeks. He's our director of schools here in Robertson County. If you're new, this is a really good place to find out about all those things and about how the districting works and where your kids can go and all that. Now's the time to get those questions answered. It's never too soon to get those questions answered before school starts up. But we'll continue with our interview with Dr. Danny Weeks in just a moment, but we want to pause for a second and talk about Valor Mortgage. My friends over at Valor Mortgage, Chris Armentrout and his experienced loan officers are there to help you get to the closing table for whatever it is you're working on. Maybe it's your first home. Maybe you want to do a refinance. Maybe you want to invest in some property and you want to have some rental properties. Are you looking for a VA loan, an FHA loan? Do you want a conventional or a jumbo financing tool to be at your access to help you meet your financing goals? Whatever it is one of the biggest decisions that you're going to make. It can be really frustrating if you're just a number. And if you call these 1-800 numbers, that's what you are. And you're going to get spammed. You're going to get just inundated with things that you do not want to hear from. You want a neighbor to help you? Reach out to Valor Mortgage today. And again, Chris would love to sit down and talk with you. They have an office. Any of the loan officers there would love to talk with you. They have an office just a couple of doors down from our wonderful new theater that we're so excited about. But they're out and about all the time, meeting with different folks. So he says, call them first, make an appointment. The number is 615-671-9178, 615-671-9178, or you can go to valor.mortgage, get pre-approved today, because as they say, when it matters most, you deserve a lender you can trust. You can trust working with Valor. If so many people come in and talk about, oh, I know, Chris, I've worked with them, and we've had so many personal testimonies just from people who have been on the show with me, and when they realize that Valor Mortgage is a sponsor, they have something to add. That's the kind of service that you're going to get with them. So when you're buying, buy with confidence, buy with Valor. Valor Mortgage, NMLS 1210804, DBA of Encore Lending Group, NMLS 1249911, equal housing lender, subject to credit approval, rates and terms subject to change without notice, not a commitment to lend, and let them know U-Turn sent you. A couple of questions as you were talking about the budget. So is that including, I doubt very seriously it's including anything to do with schools that people are projecting to build. I mean, because we know, is that all part of the budget right now, or is that something separate and apart?
That's not. That is a separate issue that when we approach the county commission, we would ask for a bond or, to borrow those monies through bonds, either for land or for buildings themselves.
Right.
So we've received some projections of building costs, and we received some. We're investigating and looking at some land currently in the Springfield area. If we were to need a middle school, if we were to need to consolidate any schools or things like that. So those are all outside, and we work closely with county finance to help us talk about what those numbers would look like. And we've worked with Mayor Vogel, who has helped us and given us some projections of when would be no times a good time to go borrow money, but
sure.
When some debt is rolling off of current the current budget for the county, then we'd be able to pick up some additional. So those are all outside what's called the general budget.
When will we know for sure what's going to happen with, because I know that's a question. It seems like every time Mayor Vogel's in, we talk about schools. Mm-hmm. So when will we know what's going to happen and when? And because I know it's something that's just constantly being talked about. Mm-hmm. Do you all have a projection on that when they'll be able to start really moving forward with those plans?
Well,
because I get that question all the time.
I'm sure, and I do as well.
When you talk to Dr. Weeks, when you talk to Mayor Vogel, ask them about this.
I do as well.
That is a big question I get all the time.
And I think the board is taking their role in that very seriously, and they need to, because quite honestly, we're probably talking about a new middle school would be in the neighborhood of $45 million.
Yeah,
and so that's if we already had property, and if it were the property we're in good shape. And I'm going to use that as an example at White House. Mm-hmm. If we were going to build a White House Heritage Middle School today, 10 years ago, the forethought was put into, we've got a nice piece of property at White House when they're building Heritage High School. Mm-hmm. Let's go back on the back part of that land. Let's flatten it out. Let's bring the utilities back to where a middle school would be. Let's get it ready. Let's dig out the rock that needs to be torn out. Let's take out the big trees and all those kind of things. So 10 years ago, somebody invested money into that property so that today, if our board were to say, yes, that's what we want to build, it's time to build it, let's go. The savings that were foreseen 10, 12 years ago to not have to put those dollars in today is so amazing. So, so that's one piece of the discussion. If we were to build a White House Heritage Middle School, there's some others that think maybe we need a middle school here in the city before that school needs to be built. So if that were the case, currently we don't have property. So we are out looking for some property. We've talked with some property owners. We've met with some property owners, and our engineers and architects and the people that take care of that, they're is it feasible to put a school on this property as it is? So they're doing those things. We don't own those properties. So first of all, we need to check and see, could you build on there? Right. And then if we come to some sort of agreements, then, we would purchase the land, make sure it meets all the specifications for, schools, especially if you're talking about middle school. You're probably talking about athletic facilities and things that go along with that. So in order to be able to do that. And then there's also been some talk among board members of, some of our elementary schools are smaller elementary schools. And would it benefit us in any way to consolidate some of the elementary schools, particularly here in Springfield? Would it benefit us to consolidate some of those and then maybe to, take down one of our older buildings and then rebuild on that property? So we're doing some preliminary work on that. Those ideas were kind of given us, I guess, at the May board meeting and a planning sessions and regular sessions in May. And so we've kind of floated those ideas to our architects, engineers that can make decisions like that and see, what about that? Yeah. And I guess the biggest piece of that is, are the properties that we own in the city of Springfield, are they adequate size, to have a middle school, or to even consolidate some elementary schools so that, some smaller properties can be put together and pulled together.
Well, and you have to think about parking and all those things. That's one thing, is sitting in this seat and hearing these conversations from Mayor Vogel and from you and different ones. It makes my head spin when you really think about it. And I know that's one thing that the school situation always comes up with Mayor Vogel, but we also talk about the TCAT.
Yes.
They're trying to find property.
Right.
They're ready to build a TCAT facility,
Yes.
but they can't find the land to do it. And it's just amazing because there's only, I'm going to talk about Barry and Rebecca Richards here in a minute, and people are always asking them, when's a good time to buy? And he says, now, anytime, because they're not making any more of it.
Right.
So you have to keep that in mind. And it's been just really emphasized as they've been trying to find land specifically for TCAT. Now, that doesn't involve the school board at all, does it? That's all a state thing. Right. That's what I thought. But that is something that is equally as important as trying to find the property for a middle school here in town, per se, has been the TCAT, trying to find TCAT property.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you've heard that before too.
We've heard that, yes. And you know, and when you think about it, you know, to find 17 to 20 acres for a middle school is probably, maybe I hate to use the word ideal, but that's what we would need, 17 to 20 acres or so, to find that property that's, you know, that you can build a large building that, you know, is going to support that and has the structure below. And again, I don't know about geo work and stuff like that, but, you know, making sure the civil work is there, parking, the infrastructure, making sure it has access to sewer, water, gas, and electricity and all those things, you know.
It is
a challenge, and
it's a
you know,
struggle.
I look around at some larger school systems. You know, I look at what Rutherford County does. I look at what Clarksville, Montgomery County has done, and I love the idea that they have gone, you know, kind of out to the extreme of the you know, area that's already developed, and they'll go out and they'll build an entire campus. They'll build an elementary, middle, and high school on that campus so that they're all served and they're there. And of course, they're growing much faster than we are. But you know, it's just like the property I was talking about in White House. You know, having the foresight to go ahead and to be a planner and to be a visionary and to say, you know, this would be a good place in the future for a school. So even if we didn't need a school today, and even if we, you know, could see out into the future and say, like, you know, this one day, this is going to be a piece of Robertson County that's really growing, or we project it to be. And, you know, I'm assuming that, you know, maybe back in history, talking about history earlier, somebody might have done that in the city of Springfield, you know, but we have 4 or 5 schools that are within a couple of miles of each other. And, you know, it's convenient, and I'm sure it was back in the day.
Right.
But right now, it's, you know, it makes zoning difficult. It makes, you know, travel between those schools pretty easy. But, you know, to say we could put a middle school on one of those properties or things like that, you know, there are a lot of considerations to you know, to look at.
I had never even thought about that.
And our boards, you know, our board is really taking their time to do that because, again, you know, I think as you look to make an investment, you know, I don't think we make any, you know, just rush judgments into anything. And especially, you know, if I were making a $50 million investment, I'd be very careful as well.
Yeah, for sure. But that is, again, I just had to ask the question because if I don't, people will be like, well, you didn't ask him about this stuff. Anything. But what else have we got to cover here? I tell you what, let me go ahead and do my break with Barry and Rebecca since I mentioned them, and then we'll come back and reset, and we'll have time to wrap everything up because I know we both have to get to central office because I have professional development today. And I'm sure you have plenty of work to do at the office this morning. So let's go ahead and let's talk for a moment about my friends, Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty. Are you looking for anything to do with real estate? I just purse their ad always, whether if it be buying, if it be selling, or if you want to be a realtor. The reason why I just really like to emphasize that is because I love to talk about the journey that Barry and Rebecca took. They both had other careers. Rebecca was in radiology before they had their kids, and while she stayed home with the kiddos, and they got in school, and she wanted to get back into the workforce, and she had gotten interested in real estate, and she started looking into it. When she made the decision to leave radiology, you think about the work that she put in to get the degree to do that, and then change her mind and say, but I'm really interested in this line of work, and she researched the companies to make sure she had one that was going to be everything she needed to be successful. And she started with Exit, and that she was part of the Garden Gate team for years and years. Barry was always there to help her because he was a media marketing vice president up in Nashville for 17 years. And so her properties just popped. The ones that she covered, they had the photography, the videography, when the drones came along, drone footage, walkthrough tours, all the things, because he was an expert at that. And then eventually he made the switch to full-time real estate. So they've made that journey. They've got all this background, and he's worked in Nashville. They've worked all over. So while they are, they're in Cross Plains, been there for 30 plus years. So they are Robertson Countyans, and they specialize in Robertson County properties. But because of their background and just diverse background, they also buy and sell in the surrounding counties and across the state line in Kentucky. Because like myself, they are originally from Kentucky. So they get it. They understand it. You will not find a better team to work with. They've also are working now with Brandy Hastings, is also a part of the Exit Prime Realty Group. And they have offices. They have a realty office out in White House that Rebecca works out of. They also have a broker up there that can broker deals in Kentucky. Not everybody can anymore, and you need to make sure if you're looking at property in Kentucky that you've got that covered. Barry has a brokerage office here in Springfield, down on the square, and all together, they make Exit Prime Realty, and again, the whole package, everything you need to make sure that you are covered, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, or whether you want to learn to be a realtor. Something Barry shared with me the other day, and Dr. Weeks will be interested in this. There's a program through the state that kids can get licensed to sell real estate. And so I'm going to talk to our business teachers when we get back to school and say, are you aware of this? But there is a full program where they can get licensed to be a realtor in high school. How cool is that?
That's
and
exciting.
I had never heard of that.
That is.
And so Barry was mentioning that to me. So I'm gonna see if we can't, at least get something like that available, because I've had several kids come to the schools and tell me they wanted to go into real estate, and I've pointed them to Barry and Rebecca to help them bring them along. So whatever it is that you need in real estate, reach out to Barry and Rebecca today. You can go to sellwithbecky.com, or buy BUY, or you can give them a call, 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425, or 7424, or you can just Google them. That's what Barry says. Just Google us. You'll find us. And make sure you let them know U-Turn sent you. Did you know there was a program by the state that would pay for?
I did not, and
I didn't either.
I'm interested to hear how that would fit into our curriculum and to be able to do that. That's right.
Yeah, I was going to reach out to Dr. Osborne and say, hey, is this something? And, the different teachers that teach in that line, and just say, hey, you might want to look into this. But Barry had some information on it.
That's
and
great.
I was like, oh, that is so cool. Because that's an expensive endeavor.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, to get that license in. And there's so many through the CTE programs, the medical assistance licensing that they can get. Just the coolest thing ever. I mean, when you find those programs that they can get that are, that are so valuable, OSHA is one that a lot of them get. Well, that's a big deal. Getting that OSHA certification and putting that on your resume.
Right.
So anyway, cool stuff happening. So where are we going from here?
A couple of things I wanted to wrap up with, and these are back to family and student things. So what a parent that's listening this morning needs to think about. And so one of my least favorite things to talk about is disciplinary hearings. And so students that make some very poor choices during the year, and of course, at an occasion they do. And so this year we have had a total of 150 discipline hearings. And so these are things that cannot be dealt with at the school system. So possession of drugs, use of drugs, possession of alcohol, use of alcohol, severe fights and things like that, persistent behaviors that over a period of time that the school has tried to deal with and tried to work with parents, but feel as if they cannot any longer. And so they bring them to a disciplinary committee that meets and hears the case on behalf of the school, and they hear it's a due process opportunity for the student to talk about why this happened or what they knew or didn't know about what was going on. So we looked at the results from the disciplinary hearing last night, and we looked at the various schools which brought the cases, and of course that's not a reflection on that school. It's just it's what it is.
Yeah.
Students make a poor decision sometimes, and they do that. And they come before a hearing committee that decides what their future is. Some of those students are sent back to school on probation. Several of those students participate for a period of time at our alternative program. And so a placement at the alternative school for a period of time. And then, some of them are expelled or suspended for an extended period of time where they're not on school campus. And so we take a look at those last night. We see those by school. We see what kinds of students, what grade levels students that are making those decisions. Are they male? Are they female? The different backgrounds and things like that. So I think that's a reminder to our parents that, we have student handbooks and we talk all the time about, what students could and should do, but making that effort if our students, make a poor decision, how do we deal with that? How do we talk to our students on a day-to-day basis about doing the right things when they go to school each and every day? Do we reinforce those things that we hear, when we get our student handbook and we talk about, I know vaping is one of those things that's, popular among teenagers. So we talk to them about if you have those at school and you're caught with it, you are going to a disciplinary hearing and you face, losing lots of opportunities at the school level and seeing that. So I don't like talking about that, but it is a reality. Mm-hmm. And we do need to make sure that our families are working in partnership with us. And particularly, if it's not a drug or alcohol case, a bullying case or something like that, how do we deal with conflict when we're at school and somebody says something to us that we don't like? And I know you deal with that in your classroom each and every day, but these are the extreme cases, where there's injury and there's fight and there are things that are surrounding that. So, parents have an opportunity to talk to the school about how those things, so that students aren't brought to a disciplinary hearing on persistent, problems at school. So if we're having a problem, and you're seeing a pattern of a student being suspended 2 or 3 days, and then another 3 or 4 days, another 3 or 4 days, it's time to intervene there at the school level, because when they come to a disciplinary hearing, that's not a time to negotiate what can we do. That's a time of district administrators issuing a punishment,
right?
Oftentimes resulting again in long suspensions or placement at alternative schools.
One of the encouraging things, though, as a teacher is when you have a student. I've had experiences with students that I had no idea had previous discipline issues.
Yes.
And on the backside, after they've succeeded and done well, the student will tell me some things. And it's just beautiful to see that redemption factor, too, because I've seen it multiple times in my classroom where a kid that I had no idea had early, because that was my first experience with them. And then they'll start saying, well, I went to alternative school for a while. And I'm like, really, did you? Well, you don't seem to. And it's just because they messed up and they came full circle.
Right.
And those are really beautiful to see, because that's the thing. And so if you've got a kid that's going through some stuff, I encourage you by saying they can turn it around, because I've seen several do it.
Yes.
And do it very, very well. So,
and that's our goal of that program. And,
right.
There is a punishment, just, at, something simple. We get a traffic ticket. Well, go pay it and get back to, normal driving. If we have an accident, we recover from that accident and we get back to where we are in life. And so that's the design. Dr. Mary Jo Holmes and her staff over at Phoenix Academy do a wonderful job of, it is a school. It's not. We're not sending kids to jail. They're going to school. They're learning the same thing to the extent possible at Phoenix Academy as they would if they were in their school. So oftentimes they'll get their same classes if possible again.
Right.
Bring those to Phoenix Academy, get that instruction, and then get back to school after they've served their time there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And again, I've seen several very good success stories, and was quite surprised when the students started telling me what they had, that they had this experience. And I'm like, well, I'm just so glad to see you doing so well now.
Right.
And they can turn it around. They can turn it around.
They get some intensive counseling while they're there.
Yeah.
They have a good transition meeting. So when it's time to go back to normal school, they send people to the school to talk about how those students acted at alternative program, and then how we expect them to act when they go back to school.
Very good. So it's just part of the process.
It is part of the process, and it's not one that we go around talking about a lot, and that may be the first time we've talked about it. But it is something parents need to help negotiate through with their students, and just reinforcing. The school rules are the school rules, and they're going to be enforced. And there are some that automatically are referred to the disciplinary committee. So
Right.
that's a report there. The last thing, another important thing for families is, and not so popular, but school and classroom fees.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yep.
the board, each principal collects fees. So they go to the teaching staff and say, what does it cost, to buy a book, like in several of our English classes, they buy a novel that they read. What does it cost to participate in choir? Maybe they need to buy some music or they have to buy a particular outfit. Our expensive ones often are band, cheerleading is very expensive, athletics, football, the things that have a lot of those that require additional support. And so last evening, the board reviewed those fees. They approved those fees. And so, from a family perspective, if I know my daughter wants to try out for basketball at a particular school, I could look on the list and I could see, okay, a high school basketball player at East Robertson usually needs to spend X number of dollars. And so
Right.
they could find that by school. They can find that what the fees are associated with that. And sometimes, if that becomes a barrier, they have opportunities now to find job, to find support, to come talk to a coach about, can I pay that over time, or is that going to be due on the day of tryouts? How does this work? There are a few classes that actually have some, particularly some clubs and classes that may have some fees associated with them because we do some extra things that are not supplied in the regular budget that we talked about earlier. Again, a lot of those may be, I think about art, sometimes you need supplies. You may need your own set of, drawing utensils or things like that. I know when I taught math, everybody had to have a protractor and a compass.
Right. Well, and do calculators for math and all of that.
Yeah.
So
and so those fees were approved. A lot of those too are associated with a club or organization. So just
FFA is a big one. There's tons of stuff with FFA.
Look through here, Beta Club. So
Yeah.
Beta Club, they often go to conferences and attend things, have events. So just glancing through those lists, and somebody says, well, why aren't those things included in the general budget? Because these are usually extracurricular or co-curricular, so they work hand in hand with the schools. And the thing again, those fees are available now, so we know what those are. So if I know my student wants to play basketball that starts in November, and let's say if I had to come up with $200, I've got between now and November to start saving a little bit of money every paycheck and setting that aside and having that there, and talking to people if I do need help.
Is the Family Resource Center a place that they could go to if a parent needs help with that kind of thing?
I think they can provide some guidance and some resources. I don't know that just
they would
there
be
may
able
not
to
be money and things like but I think they can help find summer jobs and different things like that. So there are opportunities there.
And I tell you, if you're affiliated with a church and you've got a kid that's wanting to do something, let your church know. Yeah. Because there's no one that wants to let a kid have to sit on the sideline because of a financial issue. Right. And so you just gotta let your church know, and I guarantee you they'll circle around you and help you out. And anyway, what else you got for us? Anything? Is that it?
That's it for tonight.
Okay.
We're gonna plan. We'll go to the budget committee this afternoon and talk to them about our budget and see how that goes, and then back to work recruiting and placing and moving and taking care of all those things.
Yeah, getting everybody in place because school's going to be here like that. So anyway, will you be here next month?
I plan on it.
Okay,
yes.
Me too. So we'll revisit and sit down and talk again in July, and then it'll be just weeks before school starts. So very good. Thank you, Dr. Weeks.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy your summer, and I will see you over at Central Office here in just a minute. Thank you guys for joining us. Tomorrow is StayPositive.News Day. It is going to be a day to just talk about all the good things going on around our county, and we hope you'll be a part of it. This is 1100 WSGI. God bless you. Have a great day.
Got that old time religion, that is why